Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino. We are produced by Sharc Creative. We are made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built, by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armont, by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and by Jaguar Land Rover of Shell Mount Kisco and White Plains. Here I am in my New Rochelle purple garb today, and this is on the Beat in Westchester. From over in White Plains, we are joined by John Bailey. John Bailey is the publisher and editor of White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, WPCNR.com, also host of White Plains Weekend People to be Heard, both seen weekly on a variety of cable systems around Westchester, so many too numerous to name. John Bailey, welcome back to On the Beat in Westchester. Great to have you. There is never a shortage of news around Westchester, and I got to ask you to get started here. Will we ever stop talking about COVID? I thought we weren't about done. We are not.
It's an ongoing story. It's like abortion is going to be an ongoing story.
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Weeks, months, years. I mean, it's just an ongoing thing, but you can get COVID.
You can.
You do not have to get pregnant unless you're infected.
I have an old friend who somebody I know came across a few days ago who he has a pre-existing condition, okay? And he seemed to be working pretty well with that, getting over that. He's had that for a number of years. He apparently got COVID in January, had a heart attack in February, went to his doctor and said COVID related, right? And the doctor, he said, seemed like didn't want to get involved with that and said no, but he's pretty sure it came from COVID. The result of that, he does have that pre-existing condition. As you point out, you can get COVID. And as we know, you can get it pretty seriously still.
Well, this is what we don't really know. That's why it's important to keep focusing on what we don't know instead of, hey, everything's okay. And I mean, White Plains locally scheduling 1, 2, 3 major new events in White Plains in June. Major outdoor events.
And plus, we have upcoming in just a few days the Glendy Louch Track and Field Games, the annual 54th annual at White Plains High School, and more than 250 schools and about 3,500 kids or student athletes are going to be on the way to White Plains. Yeah. So could this be something that we need to keep an eye on too?
Well, it's going to be wide open. The athletes who are participating do not have to test going in or show negative test results before competing. They do not. This is a disgrace by the Athletic Commission.
Have we gotten too lax around Westchester now these past couple of months or so since Omicron? Yeah. The main variant of Omicron seems to have passed us by, yet we have BA2 that's technically Omicron light. What I don't get about BA2 is that we keep getting told it's a lot more easier to spread than the regular Omicron variant, which was pretty easy in itself, but it's not as serious, supposedly. So if it's much more easier to spread, but not really too serious to worry about, what are we worrying about then? Or should we be worrying maybe a bit more because...
Well, we don't know how serious the hospital... We don't know how serious the hospitalizations that Mr. Latimer tells us about are going up. Not really. I think it was 60 last week. I don't know what he said this week, but we'll check on that. But on the other hand, why are they being hospitalized?
Right. And the COVID alert level in New York City is back to medium, but no further restrictions being imposed. So if we are going back to medium, but no further restrictions, what direction are we really headed in here? That's like an oxymoron. And I hate that term, but I think that term in the late 80s was invented for a situation like this.
All I can say is that people have to take care of themselves because the state doesn't want to do that. The West Coast trying to sell me, commodities.
You're a busy guy, John. We know that.
No, it's just amazing. They have no idea how bad their lists are. No
I know.
idea.
I have my phone stuffed in my pocket in case somebody calls or texts. We get interrupted sometimes. So
right.
I don't know if we'll hear it, if it goes off, if it does.
The West Coast always calls it
part of the business, what we do. So
yeah.
The elections are going to be. I don't know at this point. Who knows at this point when the primary elections will be? And what gets me is this cockamamie potential, because we have the redistricting now as ordered by the New York State Court of Appeals, headed up by Janet DeFiore, the one-time Westchester DA. I think the Democrats overplayed their hand, did what they did, were very partisan, figuring the whole commission, all appointed by Democratic governors, nobody's going to say anything. And Janet DeFiore and her people said, yeah, this is not right. Got to go to a special master. Let's see if we can work something out anyway. So the Democrats have already come back with a plan that's pretty close to what they submitted originally. It's like they're begging for the special master to do whatever the special master has to do. And then we have the question of, we were supposed to have primaries in late June. Now the latest we hear is the state Senate and congressional primaries will be in late August, but the assembly will still be in late June. One candidate tells me that the governor's race will be, and this is not one of the candidates for governors, for a different office, for a congressional office. Matter of fact, his office tells me that the gubernatorial primary will be in late August now. I came across something that says, no, it's going to stay in late June. So who really knows, and why split this up?
If Hochul has the primary in June, it's to her advantage. If it's done in August, this is a thing that just goes along with the Democrats' first failure to eliminate Mr. Benjamin from the ballot, and they didn't want to do that. And somehow they got Hochulized. Hochulized. As
you think she should have been allowed?
Who was it?
Antonio Delgado is going to be.
Nicoletti. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of Rye Playland once said, somebody dropped a dime on them. And I don't know what that dime was, because they were pretty strong that they were not going to pass that legislation that Benjamin had to stay. They made a huge issue of that. And Andrea Stewart Cousins and Feasty all have a huge banana cream pie in their face on that one.
It's like they've been hitting Kathy Hochul in the face with a big banana cream pie as of late, basically. Now, that legislation you talk about was sponsored in the Assembly by Amy Poehlen of Scarsdale to get rid of Brian Benjamin or whoever might come along in the future Brian Benjamin.
Well, I congratulate Ms. Poehlen for sponsoring that, because that was the right thing to do.
Right. And then Andrea Stewart Cousins of Yonkers held it up in the Senate with Liz Krueger of Manhattan. They finally gave in. And do you think Kathy Hochul, now, first of all, I do want to point out that by having that second primary in August, do we want to run the risk of maybe much lighter voter turnout? And secondly, do you think Kathy Hochul should have been given the right to remove Brian Benjamin, or should she have been made to deal with a situation called, you made your bed, you lie in it, knowing that her people knew that there might be something wrong with his lieutenant governor paperwork? They looked into it for 4 or 5 days and then pretty much brushed it aside and said, okay, Brian, you're in. Now he's out.
You know what? Everybody in the whole darn legislature, every last one of them needs to be vetted. This is standard procedure, taking these contributions, and then, well, it's not really a bribe, it's a contribution. But this is the whole problem of the way elections are financed. However, why she picked Mr. Benjamin, we don't know. I think there were some others she could have picked if there was any question. But on the other hand, she picked him, and then suddenly, oddly enough, they indict him after he is done. They should have known that. They should have known that he was going to be indicted or being looked into. And the fact is, like when Comey dropped that bomb just before the Trump election.
Right.
Remember that one?
Right.
And that's why you just cannot have that being done in a campaign. You have to, I mean, these indictments, they say they're independent and or investigations, but hey, they sometimes are very indiscreet on how they announce them. Very indiscreet.
How they operate. Or we will look at the original redistricting that has been told by the Supreme Court. You know, the Democrats were told by the appeals court in the state of New York, you can't do this. It looked like so much outcry about Republicans claiming that they were being redistricted, legislated, and remapped out. But yet there were certain Democrats who also too were being remapped out, like it seemed like a Jamal Bowman and maybe a Mondale Jones, as we talked about. And maybe those situations can be rectified by the special master. Antonio Delgado, Dutchess County and Albany area congressman, will be the new lieutenant governor under Kathy Hochul. He is known as a far left liberal, and yet I've seen certain moves he's made that have moved him back towards the center too. Is this a good move by Kathy Hochul to pick him?
Well, number one, he's had the congressional experience, and he has, I think, considerably more experience than Mr. Benjamin. Be that as it may, he is history. And now we have a Hochul and Delgado ticket, which should get her, I think, more votes. Because
do you think Kathy Hochul is in trouble?
If you're a Latino, you don't want to vote Republican. Now there seems to be a big trend of Latinos supporting Trump, but that may be out in the Midwest. I've been calling the Midwest the Midwaste. I'm sorry about that, everybody, but no offense. It's just a little humor. But anyway, that's where I think these Latinos are supporting Trump, is out beyond the New York area. I mean, he did New York no favors.
Do you think Kathy Hochul is in trouble? AKA Tom Suozzi trouble.
If she has to run for governor in August, I think she's in more trouble, because the Republicans can run commercial after commercial accusing her of corruption, accusing the Democrats of trying to rig the election. I can see the ads now. All they have to do is grab the clips. And it is unbelievable how the Democrats have handed the Republicans an issue, i.e. rigging the election, which they're screaming about Republican governors doing across the country, but they did it themselves. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. Nobody could be that stupid.
No, nobody can make any of this stuff up. Do you think Andrew Giuliani has a chance to beat Lee Zeldin and Rob Astorino for the Republican nomination for governor? Rudy Giuliani is supposed to be getting out there soon to campaign for his son, basically going after.
I don't think anybody's going to vote for Rudy Giuliani.
For Andy Giuliani. And here's the catch.
I don't even know that kid's name.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The polls show that Andy Giuliani is very well known because people hear Giuliani and they associate him with his father, Rudy, whereas maybe the name recognition of Congressman Lee Zeldin, who's pretty well known nationally, may not be as well known in Syracuse, for example.
Well, this is
Rob Astorino, the former Westchester executive who ran for governor in 2014, well known the southern part of the state, and up in Rochester, they may not recognize the name right away.
Mm-hmm. Well, name recognition is overcome by television. Republicans would love to dump the governor of New York State into the Republican hands. This would be an absolute coup. And I think the longer it takes until there's that gubernatorial primary, the worse it is.
John Bailey is the publisher.
Gubernatorial elections, all right.
CitizenNet reporter, WPNR.com, WPCNR.com. CitizenNet.com, right? Rye Playland CitizenNet reporter, WPCNR.com, and the host of White Plains Weekend. People to be heard on a variety of cable systems around Westchester County. John Bailey, we have seen the resumption of flights of illegal migrants into Westchester County Airport in the dead of night. Again, documented by former county executive Rob Astorino, Republican gubernatorial candidate. And
that took place last year.
Have followed the buses that these migrants who've been flown up here from places down in Texas and Jacksonville or wherever, planes stopping in Jacksonville, et cetera, on the way here. And the New York Post and other media outlets have trailed the buses they've been put onto, and they've been taken to a variety of locales around the tri-state area, as far south as the Philadelphia area. I do see some Catholic groups and organizations getting involved with taking those migrants off buses, so we know they are in good hands there. Yet, how much does this play into what goes on in New York State? Is that an important issue here in, let's say, the race for governor, which Rob Astorino keeps bringing up? Do people care about this? I think some do, and some may say, well, what can I do about it? I'm not the feds.
Well, this is a Joseph Biden problem. He is doing this. He is sending them out. It should have been announced he was doing. Once again, preemption eases the pain of what you're doing. But when you spring it on people, why don't politicians get this? They are really brain dead because by not preempting policy, then they get reaction and then they spread it out, but they don't lose. They don't get attacked for it. And this was secret. And to my way of thinking, at least the county executive, George Latimer, should have known about this. And if Astorino should have talked to him about it, if he was a decent, upstanding guy before he released that. But no, Astorino did not, because Latimer beat him. No bipartisanship, what is good for the people attitude there. And this is the problem. It's not what you say, it's what you do or don't do. And a lot of politicians choose not to do the right thing.
George Latimer, had he said, let's say he did say to the Biden administration, it's not a good idea to do this on my turf here. Does that really matter? Would that matter to folks in D.C., to, let's say, Alejandro Mayorkas, for example?
Well, what is happening is you have more than the immigrant problem. You have the Ukrainian refugee problem about ready to hit a square in the county.
And some who are coming through Mexico also, too, and some Russians, too, going to Mexico, going to the border, and making the trek across the Rio Grande to get to the USA without waiting to be let in legally and officially as war refugees, or Russians who say, the heck with Vladimir Putin, I'm getting the heck out of here.
It would have been a good idea had all civilians left Ukraine, because Russia is just slaughtering them.
As has been pointed out to me by some Eastern Europeans that I know, they tell me that Ukrainians who have gotten out, and especially the ones who got out early, were able financially to make a move out of the country, whether they could pay for it themselves or had people in other places who could financially help them get out. And they've said to me recently, John, the ones you see there still are the poor people of Ukraine who do not have the financial means to get themselves out of there. Therefore, they have to take whatever Vladimir Putin drops upon them.
Well, let's face it. This has got to be a self-destructive policy that Putin is attacking, is exercising, because Ukraine is Russia's breadbasket. Who's going to plant the fields? The fields have been destroyed. Maybe some of them are mined. I mean, we don't have any idea in what bad shape that country is in now. I think it's far worse than we could ever imagine.
Right. There's only so much you can see on a TV screen. Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can see on a TV screen. And as Eastern Europeans point out to me, too, there's, they say, John,
you're going to have a food shortage in
wants
Russia.
to take over Ukraine, They want to take Ukraine over, and he's killing everybody. Who can he exactly take over at that point? What's the point of all of this?
Well, the point is what he has said all along. He wants to restore the Russian Empire.
Right, but if everybody's dead, what are you restoring at that point?
Well, you just...
Or if they all flee to another country.
Maybe he should ask it. That is far too
I think that's above us. I think only Vladimir Putin can answer that question.
You don't go in there and act like you're killing civilians, okay? Or kill them. This is what he's doing. He's doing that because he was losing too many troops. And then he started to figure, well, we got to blunt them into submission. And now he has done that, and they still haven't submitted. And he's really desperate because and really, I don't understand how the president of Ukraine is still alive. Do you? I have no idea how he has managed to escape being targeted. No idea.
Right. And
basically he's a great spokesman.
Yeah, I guess it shows the kind of security system he has built up around him, President Zelensky of the Ukraine, because we've heard of so many attempted assassinations of him that I wonder if Putin has given up on trying to assassinate him at this point, though Zelensky tried to take out a top Putin general a few days ago when he found out that general was in Ukraine. He just missed, as it turned out. So does this encourage Vladimir Putin maybe to go after Zelensky to try to take him out again? It's like a real tic-tac-toe here, like a Rubik's Cube. I'm going to add into this Rubik's Cube. Eastern Europeans, I know, have told me that they think that Vladimir Putin has some kind of cancer, maybe a very serious cancer, and that this may be his grand way of exiting the world stage. Now, we get a report a couple of days ago, not verified by U.S. intelligence, but still a report out of Europe saying that Putin needs cancer surgery, likely soon. He will likely be incapacitated for 2, maybe 3 days, and he will turn over in all likelihood the reins of the presidency, like we have a succession here in this country. If the president is not capable of functioning for a day, 2 or more under sedation, having surgery, whatever, to a very high up Russian federal police guy who they say is no better than Vladimir Putin. How does this potentially figure into the mix?
Well, that's why I never miss an opportunity to be on the air, because you never know when it's going to be your last broadcast.
Hate to put it that way, right? There you go. Yeah.
No, that's what he could do. He could order a nuclear strike on the New York City metropolitan area, thus destroying the American economy. Thing like that. That is worst case scenario from America. He could have ordered it on Washington, D.C. I mean, there's lots of things you could do. When you want to, it is not even, it's incomprehensive what his strategy is now. Now, what is happening here is you've got this trusted lieutenant who I would not trust anybody if I were Putin.
No, in that region of the world, I don't think trust is something that people really extend to each other. It's just the way, that area. We know that region of the world is very corrupt, as we've heard, with Russia, the Ukraine, helped lead to all this and what's going on here now. But
I would not like to be that surgeon. I would not like to be those surgeons if something should go wrong.
Right. Although if something goes wrong, Vladimir
Putin
probably
have put their families under lock and key.
Those around him can. Yeah.
Look, they have probably taken the families of anybody who is scheduled to operate on him, if they indeed are, and this is just not a space-filling rumor filled in by all sorts of very unknown organizations I've never heard of, journalistic organizations. Then it may be all maybe a moot point. But if he is having the surgery, those surgeons have had their families incarcerated, and they have been told if he dies, they die. That's what they're told. That's the way he operates.
Now, I don't know what Russian life insurance policies are like, but these surgeons and anybody working potentially on him,
I mean, nobody talks about these
life
things,
insurance
but
policies and affairs in order. No doubt about that.
This is not a movie. This is not a movie. So you don't have a script. You don't have a script, so you know how it's going to turn out.
John Bailey is the publisher and editor of White Plains CitizenNet reporter, WPCNR.com, and he also is the host of White Plains Weekend. People to be heard on a variety of cable systems through White Plains and around Westchester. Andrew Cuomo doesn't go away like COVID, too. He's like maybe the COVID of state politics, for example, Andrew Cuomo, the way he just keeps popping back up the way COVID does. They go away for a while, goes away for a while, and everything regenerates. The latest is that higher ups in the state legislature right now are kind of stalling a potential further investigation into the impact of his COVID-19 policies 2 years ago that led to sick senior citizens being transported from hospitals into nursing homes, and maybe so many dying or getting even much more deathly or very sick as a result of this policy. Does this
have to
continue this investigation, or are we really done with Andrew Cuomo and this is like kicking a guy when he's down?
No, I think this is simply an effort on the part of the Democratic leadership up there, and I use the word in quotes because there is no leadership up there. And what they want to do is they want to launch this investigation and tie Hochul to what did Hochul know and when did she know it, thus saying she threw all these people who had COVID and were sent back to nursing homes when the nursing homes said they could take care of them when the state asked. That's what the story was. And so it is the nursing homes that should be investigated.
All right. So are you saying in so many words, this is about Democratic Party higher ups in the state who don't want Kathy Hochul?
They don't want Kathy Hochul.
What do they want then? If they don't want Kathy Hochul, what's the choice?
They don't want somebody good in there. When they had Cuomo in there, he was good. He did what he had to do. But as they say, he got on the lost highway.
All right, Tom Suozzi, is he the potential choice of the hierarchy in this state? Congressman.
Well, he's certainly, yeah. I mean, he can perhaps get the vote from Nassau and Suffolk, which would be very strong and take away a lot from Ms. Hochul's potential. But I mean, he has to be during the primary. And this abortion mess is going to help Hochul, because no woman in their right mind will vote for a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
They will not vote for someone who is tied to the political establishment. I don't know what his record is on abortions, but right now he has to knock her off in the primary. I don't know that he can actually do that. And if it takes a longer time to get that primary going, he has more time to pile on, like Astorino is on Hochul, with these issues of the past. They're issues of the past. The nursing homes killed those people. Cuomo didn't. Okay, they killed them because they couldn't take care of them. They didn't test their workers. They caused it, and it's right out there, but it is being twisted like propaganda to blame it on Cuomo and all that. Now, as we all recall, it was the secretary to the governor. How quickly we forget.
Melissa DeRosa.
That he doesn't forget, ladies and gentlemen, the man with the trigger mind. And so she was the one who told in confidence this thing that we did not want to reveal this because he felt it would be used against us and stop us from getting aid. And one thing you should never do, never tell anything in confidence to a politician, because it will be used against you. And
yeah, that happened overnight after she spoke, and she should have known, right or wrong, she should have known better.
And out she went. She was great the way she slapped down the press every day when they asked the same stupid questions. That press corps in Albany is useless.
John, you're around White Plains. You're around White Plains every day, and you're around Westchester every day. It's school budget time, school budget vote time of the year. Do we see too many districts around the county where money needs to be pumped in, and these districts may have the money, especially in poor districts where budgets get turned down, where maybe budgets should be expanded to help the kids in those districts a bit more? I can think of certain districts in mind. I'm not going to say anything here. I go back 30 years or more. You're out there every day. What's the latest that you see on that? Are we doing more? Are we doing enough for the kids of this county when it comes to school budget votes, whether that vote happens to be in the Somers or the Yorktown district, as opposed to the Peekskill or the Yonkers School District or White Plains, which can go either way, or a poor district like Greenburgh, for example, or New Rochelle? Are we divvying up the money the right way to help our kids enough, regardless of how poor or rich or affluent, like a Scarsdale district might be, or an Edgemont, for example?
Well, that is different this year because of all the COVID aid that has been pumped into the state by Washington and the American Recovery Act, and what this has enabled the legislature to do, which they have done with much ballyhoo. They have basically restored all the funding to school aid to all the districts across the state that they had refused to fund because they didn't have the money 2 to 3 years ago. And so now here in White Plains, because of this aid, which amounts to like $36 million, and it used to be only about 15 million. So they got double their school aid from federal and the state. And right now, as a result of that, they are able to embark on a budget this year that has no property tax increase at all, zero. And this is why the budget is probably going to pass with absolutely no negative votes. And
I'm going to give you a counter to that, okay? I have people who say to me, and let's use White Plains as an example. John, okay, they get 15 million. They use that up normally. This year it's going to be 36 million because of the COVID funding. And people like you say, yeah, take that 36 million, use it all. Let's institute some new programs. All right, John, what do you do next year when we don't have that COVID money, that extra 20?
It is guaranteed for 3 years. It's guaranteed
we
for
fund
3
those
years.
programs. Why get people's hopes up that, okay, we did this for a year, we can do it forever, when we can't? And I come back and say, why don't we do it and let's see what happens a year from now, because who knows?
Well, who knows indeed. However, the legislature leadership in New York State guaranteed this for 3 years. Shelley Mayer, the state senator, pointed this out when I interviewed her back when they did this. And so therefore, that they are at least in the money for at least 3 years on the school aid. And if all things go well and the stock market recovers and they don't, and the Kremlin does not eliminate New York State and the Holocaust, we'll be okay. Yes. But that is the story from the White Plains School District. And a lot of districts are going to get all this aid. But I mean, hopefully it will be evenly distributed as though they really are entitled to, because that is the big, like Yonkers gets, every time they lose $20 million or something, they get it back from the legislature because Yonkers is Yonkers. And it's stuff like that that really bothers at least a reporter like me, that how come badly managed school districts get bailed out time after time, particularly big, badly managed school districts.
Would it be because in the end we have to help the kids as opposed to what the adults might do?
Yeah. Ask the kids how much they're being helped. That's what I say. But nobody asked the kids. But parents complain about it. But in the long run, though, I can only really speak for White Plains. But I think the school districts are making an enormous mistake by not testing more as students come back. The COVID numbers are really up. They're up for 5 straight weeks in Westchester County alone. 5 straight. We had 9 million 9 million infections over the last 5 weeks. That's a lot. 9 million in the county. And if nobody's paying attention to that, and we started off the first 2 days of the week ahead of the first 2 days of last week, and that is not good because the testing is very low on the weekends. And it seems to me that means more people were feeling sick. And so they came in to get tested on Saturday and Sunday. Why were they feeling more sick? Are they getting sicker sooner from the new variants?
Supposedly,
I don't know. These are the questions.
Yeah, that in 2 or 3 days.
Getting sicker sooner. And this is not good because that means the disease will spread faster. Because what happens? Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays are huge infection days now in Westchester. And this has been a trend I've seen develop each week during this 5-week sequence. And so if the officials and the health officials and the New York State Health Department are not asking firm questions to the people who come in saying, I'm positive, what do I do? And they have to find out, well, how long ago did you go to they have to do the contact tracing. They have to find out, are they vaccinated? Are they fully vaccinated? Have they not gotten vaccinated at all? We had a stat last year. 90% of the people getting COVID are unvaccinated. Okay, that made everybody feel good, didn't it? Well, now we have to know how good is that the vaccines are really working. And that's the only way you can find out is by asking and doing a real detective-like questioning in a nice way, of course. I mean, this HIPAA law is killing us because nobody wants to reveal actual stats. But you have to do that. You have to have the facts as to what is being done or not being done as causing this spread.
John, I was walking in the park one day in the merry month of May, and that park happened to be Rye Playland. And I looked around, and I had visions of the way Rye Playland used to be, where I'd be on a roller coaster, which I hated, at 60 or 70 miles an hour, or I'd be on a ride and have the whole world just flipped upside down. I would be facing the ground instead of the sky and hoping this ride would flip back up because that's what the ride does. Or maybe I'd walk up to the baseball cage and see a 90-mile-an-hour fastball coming out of the machine and saying, not today. I think this bat I have here is broken. Or maybe hosting like I used to do back in the mid and late 90s, the Friday night big band concerts at Rye Playland. Or going back to 1973, my first trip there with a bunch of my friends who none of us could swim. And they all took out rowboats in the pond there. And they almost tipped over, switching boats near that island in the middle. And I was running along shore because I was into fishing and things like that and currents at the age of 16 and trying to guide them along there to make sure nobody got hurt. And I was there was a roped off area, and I was about to run under the rope to stay in time with them along the shoreline. As I started to go under the rope, I heard somebody yell out, "Hey, read that sign." And the sign said, "Quicksand." A construction worker saved me from stepping into quicksand in the summer of 73 at Rye Playland because of all my friends who had no idea what they were doing out on the water there. Luckily, everybody made it home safe and okay. Are we going to be able to do any of these things at Rye Playland this summer, or are we just going to watch construction work all summer?
Now, according to George Latimer the other day, he's on the WVOX, he said that Playland will be opened June the 9th. Didn't mention about Memorial Day, but I think they'll probably open it that weekend too. But I don't know. But Standard Amusements is opening it on June the 9th. And I guess maybe just weekends, but maybe each day. Who knows? We don't know the details of how much they're going to open. This is what I mean. It's one thing of saying, oh, we're opening June 9th, but what are the conditions will be? What will be the new prices? Little things like that are important. And in fact, the progress reports on Playland, there haven't been any. Have not been any. Then,
and I remember 30 years ago at the old WFAS in White Plains, where we'd be at Playland with a live event every weekend back then in the early 90s. Another lasting memory or two is looking at an old antique car and having somebody tell me the first automatic, they had I think it was one of the first automatic vehicles back in 91 at Rye Playland from 1938. And this is kind of a joke in the industry to this day, 30 years later. Peter Noon was at Rye Playland for a concert and a variety of things, and I was supposed to get him on the air for an interview, and I promised that interview, and Peter Noon said, I'll be back within the hour, and here we are 31 years later. I'm still waiting for Peter Noon to show up.
Still waiting for him.
Maybe I should just go back to Rye Playland and make a call to his publicity people and have him come on.
Good to be a star, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. So we're still waiting, like waiting for Godot, waiting for Peter Noon to come back for that interview.
Well, but see, that sticks in your mind all these years. Mm-hmm. He disrespected you. He disrespected WFAS. If you didn't want to do it, he should have said, no.
All he had to say was, nah, Herman and the Hermits need me more than you need me. So
yeah.
Gotta go.
You don't say, I'm going to do it, and you don't show up. That's why I always show up.
Like they say, everybody has their own reasons for doing or not doing things. Like, for example, the person, we assume someone connected to the Supreme Court in one way, shape, or form, released the paperwork that the court had put together, basically by Justice Alito, about the court's seemingly upcoming decision to flip over Roe versus Wade. I'm not going to call it a total abolition because states will have the right to make that decision, but to change the parameters
until
versus Wade. What happened here? Protocol is that you don't release negotiations or deliberations of the Supreme Court until everything is official. Does it seem like somebody behind the scenes wanted this to get out to put pressure on the court? Is somebody looking to start a civil war? Because this happened 2 days ago, and this country has been, to me, in quite some turmoil ever since. And we're putting more onus on this, I think, than, let's say, the war in Ukraine, or let's say Title 42 at the border. What's the right thing to do with that?
Yes. Well, the abortion was the two main stories on the front page of the New York Times this morning. So you're absolutely right. This is a distraction. But it may not make a difference if Putin has a lunatic moment and does something unspeakable.
I say if you're a Supreme Court justice, and some claim this was an attempt to put pressure on the justices to maybe make some sway back the other way. If you really believe in what you believe, you go ahead, right or wrong in the minds of anyone else, you go ahead and you do it. And then if anybody wants to come back and take it from there, you go right back ahead and do that. If this is what you believe, you don't let the pressure get to you, you stick to your guns. And that, to me, is what the legal system in this country is about. And the beauty of this country, it's about freedom of speech. It's court decisions that we may not agree with, but we find ways to work around those decisions and maybe make those decisions even better in the end and make things better for everyone in the end. I think there's just now a lot more still to come with this issue. And as we know,
never, ever.
And we know, I guess,
never been a solution. There's never been a solution to the abortion need. There's never
been 26 states, I think, off the bat are basically going to say no more abortions in the state. That'll basically split the country in half. The question is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Do we need many things, many more things in this country, federally mandated, so we're all in lockstep?
Poor states. They will turn into poor states because today's women are not going to live under those conditions. They will move elsewhere. They will move to states which enable them to live their lives without subjecting them to the results of violent attacks on them, spousal abuse, and what making abortion illegal does is it simply enables persons who feel they should have whatever power they want over women and do not like them.
Are we becoming a country of, if that comes to pass, that way that women move around to different states based upon what reproductive rights may be in one particular state as opposed to another? Or people from the Northeast who no longer are just snowbirds, they move down to a state like Florida because the taxes are lower and the way of life is different, and some of the other issues going on there now too, that they may be more in sync.
You got a real big battle coming up.
Are we becoming that kind of a country that we just move around based upon what we think politically and then go settle in that kind of a place? We go from New York to Florida, we go from New York to Texas, we go from, let's say, Iowa, where it may be a bit more restrictive, to California, New York,
I think this has been going on for about 25 years
less
or so.
Restrictive, no matter what the Supreme Court decides. So,
well, the Supreme Court is in La La Land, and you have to decide when you're on a court like that of the total ramifications of your decision, no matter what your beliefs are, and that's what this court isn't doing. Okay, they're just not doing it. I mean, and
has the court become too politicized?
Yes. When you get appointed because you are based on the decisions you made, that means whoever is appointing you is trying to make a political statement on the court. The Democrats did this when they appointed the majorities back in the 40s and 50s, and it's always been done, but none to this blatant extent. I mean, and then to have them ramrodded through, and for the Republicans to reject Merrick Garland, that was really a precedent. It never really happened before, but it did now. So we're dealing with that. On the other hand, what now that with Vance winning the Senate primary in Ohio, he really becomes a player. You could have a Trump-Vance ticket, which
I don't think that would happen, honestly. I really don't. I know,
but he's popular. He's popular. He's a best-selling author, which doesn't make him an expert in anything. I mean, authors are authors. They write books to make money. And and you've got DeSantis, who is, I think, angling to for the vice presidency.
I think, some say he's angling for the presidency, and that's why Donald Trump has been somewhat hostile to him in some instances as of late. Now, if Trump were operating the right way, he would have to know, regardless, that DeSantis is a big ally of his, and don't push him too far because you don't want to kick your allies away, especially if you don't have a lot of allies or if you have to continue to fight for people.
Yes, well, it is unfortunate that Mr. Vance won, and totally unqualified. And, I mean, you don't want somebody like that running the country. You already had somebody like that running the country. We got a taste of what that was. If Trump had been reelected, Trump would be, Russia would be in Poland. They'd be in Czechoslovakia right now. I mean, think about that. That is what's at stake here. If Putin now figures if he can hang on for another couple of years, he's going to get the whole USSR back. But of course, we have to get through his surgery. And that's
we'll see what happens with
the surgery, the made-up surgery, perhaps.
We'll see what happens with that and so much more in the weeks to come. between now and the next time we talk, John Bailey, I'm sure we'll have,
which is day to day, folks. It's day to day. We are in day to day.
It's moment to moment, actually, it's what it is. So second to second. Yeah. I look at it like second to second.
All people's problems will be solved.
Well, I look at it this way: as we talk here, who knows what else is going on that we haven't heard about yet? So that's what it all comes down to. John Bailey, we thank you. John Bailey here on the Beat in Westchester, here on WestchesterTalkRadio.com. John Bailey is the publisher and editor of White Plains, CitizenNet reporter, WPCNR.com, host of White Plains Week, and also people to be heard on a variety of cable systems around White Plains and the county of Westchester here on Westchester Talk Radio. We are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and by also to Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, Mount Kisco, and White Plains. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, and Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube, and we have an app now too. Take it with you anywhere and everywhere you go. Download it, carry it with you, pump it up, and pop it up 24/7, called Westchester Talk, all courtesy of Sharc Creative.